Hello there, my friends. It's good to be with you. And I just want to share a few verses with you that are very, very powerful. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy looking at those verses. But before I get to them, let me just again reiterate that my position is not to condemn or to declare books to be garbage. You know, books that come from history are not, when it's not the Qur'an, or it's not the authentic original Injil or the authentic original Torah, then they are not divine. They are not divine. You see, then they are just people relating information that they've received, and it's lost its divine value. Only the Qur'an that has been preserved and continuously and over and over confirmed to be an original or a authentic rendition of the original. Only the Qur'an has been able to maintain its pristine originality and its authenticity. And for that reason, but not only because we know from empirical or from manuscript evidence, but also from investigating the text. The text itself is clearly not an impostor's words or the words of a prophet that is there to project himself. There is absolutely zero self-flattering of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Qur'an. And so the text itself is its own proof, and then also its consistency. Those are all the things that keep us, sort of assure us of the authenticity of the Qur'an. Most of all, it is the words, it is the message in there. A message that we confirm not only by deductively finding confirmation in nature, but also inductively. By applying the message, we do experience an elevation in our own lives. So you can use deductive logic, you can use inductive methodologies, you can use retroductive methodologies, and all of these logical tools will lead you to maintain that the Qur'an is indeed a divine text. Not so with the hadith books. Unfortunately, the hadith books, everyone agrees that the hadith books have weak hadith and strong hadith, which means it already loses. Allah doesn't create weak hadith and strong hadith, my friends. Allah creates only 100% authentic, powerful truth. And if you say that the word of Allah contains weak hadith and strong hadith, you are lessening the power of your Lord. If you say that there are weak words of Allah and they are strong, then you are already reducing the power of Allah. The big question some of you sit with is, but the Qur'an says, Ati'u Allah wa Ati'u Rasul, obey Allah and obey the messenger. You know, those words were revealed at a time when the messenger was very much the commander-in-chief. And we should apply that message, because are you going to say there's no more salah because the Nabi Muhammad ﷺ led the salah and now he's not here, now there's no salah? You know, I'm talking about actual salah where there is an imam, where there is somebody leading the call of duty or the observance session, as it is written, where the Prophet used to convene salawat with the people, observance sessions. Are you going to tell me that there is, because the Prophet ﷺ is no longer there, there is no salah? You see, the thing is, salah has to continue. And obedience to the messenger becomes obedience to those who are obedient to the messenger. You see, when the messenger departs, there are people that will, until the day of judgment, who will be adherents of the Qur'an. They will be faithful and obedient to the Qur'an. And those people, you must find them. Find them locally, find them in your community, find them globally. And those are the people that you must be. When Allah says, Ati'u Allah wa Ati'u Rasul, it means obedience to Allah and obedience to those who are obedient to Allah and His Messenger. But to say obedience to the Messenger means you need to take books that have weak hadith and strong hadith. That is not what this verse meant. This verse does not mention hadith books. This verse does not mention Bukhari. This verse does not mention that you need to now write up all the sayings of the Prophet. The Qur'an does not say that. So we must assume that obedience to the Prophet means obedience to those who are obedient to the Prophet. And you must find them. You must find those people. And the best way to find them is to find those people who are obedient to the Qur'an. Now, if you look at the Muslim world today, and you look at who are the countries that are obedient to the Qur'an, is very easy for you to see. Because you cannot be obedient to America. You cannot be obedient to Israel. You cannot defend Israel and say that you are a person of Qur'an. And so you are eliminating those countries. If you are obedient to the Prophet, you cannot be obedient to those countries who are serving America, serving Israel's purpose, and going against those. You have to look for those countries like the Houthis. You have to look for those countries like the Hamas. You have to look at Iran. You have to look at Iraq, you have to look at Syria, you have to look at Hezbollah. These are the nations and the groups that are obedient to Allah. And when you say Ati'u Allah, Ati'u Rasul, you need to identify those people, my friends. And that is just a short introduction, but really what I want to say in this video is that there's a sort of a misunderstanding with respect to what the Qur'an means by the Day of Judgment. Now, we all agree that there will be a day of reckoning. Yawmuddin, Yawmul Qiyamah. Yawmul Qiyamah means the day of resurrection. Yawmuddin means the day of judgment. It's a day on which Allah, God, will classify all those who have served the purpose of humanity, who have served the purpose of truth, who have been just to themselves and to humanity, and will separate them, distinguish them from those who have been denying truth, denying their own nature, denying God, denying their fellow human beings. It's a terrible day for those people. It's a day on which those people shall suffer the consequences of their destructive actions on this planet. A day on which those people who harmed their fellow human beings, who harmed society, who harmed themselves, their families, their spouses, their children, who by neglect or by omission or by commission, those people will have to face the justice of their actions. And those others who have not harmed and who have been, decent, righteous, upright, dutiful, they will face the reward for their good deeds. That is what Allah calls the end of time. And it is often referred to as the hour. Right? In my translation, I use the word the 0 hour. But one thing that we often misunderstand is that the Qur'an also refers to many other 0 hours. There's not just one 0 hour. We all think the day of judgment or the day of Qiyamah is just that one day, after a million years. But there are, in fact, other days of judgment that will occur in the run-up to that final, ultimate day of judgment. And nations will face their own judgment. People will face their own judgment. But let us look at nations. Nations, populations, generations who come onto this earth and who act destructively, who act contrary to their nature, who discard or abandon the rights of the weak in their societies. Those nations will face judgment. That is according to the Qur'an. They will face a judgment. And that judgment is not in a million years. That judgment is now. It is now within a generation. Nations generally, we know from social scientists and from historians, people who study history, that civilizations, grand populations like the USA, they generally last for between 80 and 110, 20 years. Between 80 years and 120 years. That's the span, the length in which those powerful nations rule or dominate. And then they either meet judgment in the form of they die a slow, they normally don't die a slow death. They are replaced, or they continue if they are just. That is the mini judgment that Allah refers to when God speaks in the Qur'an about the people of Lot, which we heard of as Sodom and Gomorrah, a term that's not in the Qur'an, but we will assume that those are the people of Lot, and we know the terrible fate that Sodom and Gomorrah suffered. Then there are the people of Hud, the Ad people. Then there are the people of Shu'aib. Then there are the people of Salih. Then there are the people of Fir'aun. Then there are the people of Noah. All of these stories are narrated in the Quran and tells a tale of a nation caught in iniquity, caught in injustice, caught in self-destructive morality, perversiveness, depravity, and then suffering the consequence on this earth of that depravity. And that is the mini 0 hour that I want to call it. Often we are confused about there's only one day of judgment. No, there's these 0 hours that will visit populations that become depraved, corrupt, unjust. And what we find today, and this is what I want to conclude, and I'm going to show you the verse now, a terrible sort of deduction or reading of the Quran, a very scary reading of some of the verses in Surah Juz Amma, in the 30th section of the Quran. A very scary reading of some of those verses is that the next extinction event, the next 0 hour that will visit the earth, because we know who's ruling now, right? We know who's ruling. It's the what we call the West, what we call Anglo-Saxon Western power, what we call, it's generally referred to as the West. But in the West, we have the cities of London, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, Sydney, Australia, some cities in Europe, Western Europe. Those are really the leaders of what we call Western civilization today. What Imran Hussein, and what I concur with, what we can also refer to as Juj and Ma'juj, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So foretold in the Quran as a future nation or people that will spread or encompass the entire earth. Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And don't for a moment think that certain Muslim nations are not counted amongst Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Ya'juj and Ma'juj is the West, and all those within the Arab world and within the Muslim world who have paid loyalty and have affinity for the ways and the means and the culture of the West. And so the next extinction event that will visit Ya'juj and Ma'juj, right, the West, that extinction event, it seems in a particular reading from the Quran in chapter 13 that we are facing an extinction event that will be by fire, by an immense fiery end to those populations. And we're not saying that the entire earth will be wiped out, but those nations will be unfortunately wiped out or reduced or reduced to almost nothingness by this fire. And let me quickly show you one of these chapters, chapter 104, from verse 1. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wailil likulli humazatil lumaza. In the name of the one true God, the cosmic benefactor who is kind. Shame on all who defame and recriminate. And that's a very important aspect of the civilization we are in now, is recrimination of all other nations, recrimination of all those who are not them. My work on post-coloniality is that the essence of colonialism is denying and recriminating all those who are not part of the group. So the out group, those who are not part of the West, who are not in with the culture of the West, in with the woke agenda, in with the LGBTQ agenda, in with the injustice, with the greed. All those who are on the outside are recriminated, are accused, are belittled, are marginalized. Shame on all who defame and recriminate, amassing a fortune thereby, getting rich in the process while keeping meticulous record of it. الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَ. Right, so again we get the image of the West, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, preoccupied, obsessed with the accumulation of wealth. Whenever you switch on the TV, the main topic is how do you accumulate wealth? How do you increase your portfolio? Amassing a fortune thereby while keeping meticulous record of it. People pay people to keep record of their portfolio. Assuming his wealth will keep him alive forever. So the typical citizen of Ya'juj and Ma'juj of the West, as we know it today, is as if wealth will give you life, non-stop life. Definitely not. Kalla, the word kalla means definitely not. Into the incinerator shall he be cast. Now here comes the term that brings up the image of this fiery end. Into the incinerator they shall be rendered, they shall be cast, they shall be flung into the hutama. Hutama, that is the Arabic word here. What is the hutama? The next verse is, what then is this hutama, you may ask? What then is this incinerator, you may ask? وَمَا أَدَّرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. What is this hutama? It is the blaze of God fully fueled. It is the blaze of God fully fueled. It is a special blaze that is cocked and ready, fully fueled, laden, ready. A fire that shall monitor the mindset. Now that's a mysterious meaning there. Alladhi tattali ala al-afida. It also means it creeps up to the hearts. And I wasn't certain how to render this, so I'm going to go with a fire that shall monitor the mindset. A fire that shall discriminate against the minds, right? As it relentlessly closes in on them. Innaha alayhim musada. And then the last one is really the one that brings the image of a nuclear explosion to my mind. In extended columns. In extended columns. Now, the image I get from that is it is a highly fueled fire, very potent fire that targets people and that will obliterate people. And my friends, I'm very, very, it is not a pleasure for me to think this or to read this from the Qur'an. There are other verses, chapter 103, the same. It also alludes to this. A very scary thought is that we are indeed facing if we read these verses, there is a particular reading from these verses that seems to point to a nuclear apocalypse as the method of destruction that the West will suffer. And you and I, who are alive in this time, isn't it almost like eerily real for us? If we look at what is happening right now, the Iranian promise to revenge Israel's attack of a senior person in Iran, in his home, in the safety of his bedroom. Israel's bombing of killing of that man, and killing of many others. Iran's promise to retaliate, and Israel's promise then, in no uncertain terms, to respond with its nuclear arsenal. We are actually on the very verge of seeing these verses come through, where Ya'juj and Ma'juj are ready to commence this self-destructive war of nuclear attack, nuclear assault on Iran. And we know that once the nuclear genie is out of the bottle, it will not go back in. It was once upon a time out of the bottle in the year 1945 when the kingpin of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, America, bombed a Japanese city. But it was at a time when nobody else had access to the weapon. Now there are at least 9 or 10 countries that have the weapon. And my friends, this is not, I don't want to depress you in this video, but all I want to say to you is, survivors are people who plan ahead, who think ahead, and who make provision for the worst case scenario, even if it doesn't materialize. But also, if we are not survivors, then we can at least be thankful that our hearts are pure. If we are those who accept and admit to the one God, we admit to the evil of what is going on in the world, and we refute it. We deny it, we make our objection clear against it, and we die in a state of admitting to truth and denying evil. Then at least our death is a death that is noble. And those who die in a state of evil, their death is a death of ignominy, of infamy. And my brothers and sisters, I don't want to depress you, but it is good that we make our hearts, our minds clean, and that the days that are coming, that we are ready to face the hours that are lying ahead for us in this world.